Hello, my little friends. Today I want to tell you about a very unusual girl. Her name is Pippi Longstocking. She is not like any other child you have ever met, and that is exactly why children all over the world love her story. Pippi is wild, free, and full of surprises. She does not live with parents, she does not go to school, and she makes her own rules. Some people may think that is strange, but Pippi thinks it is simply wonderful. Let's step into her world and see what adventures she brings. Villa Culla, the strange little house. Pippi lives all alone in a funny old house called Villa Culla. Well, she is not completely alone. She shares her house with two very special friends, Mr. Nielsen, a tiny monkey who wears little clothes and rides on her shoulder, a horse, who lives right on the porch of the house, because why not? Most children cannot even imagine having a monkey and a horse at home, but for Pippi, it is the most natural thing in the world. She brushes her horse's mane, feeds him sugar lumps, and sometimes even lifts him up with her super strength. That's right, Pippi is the strongest girl in the world. The strongest girl. Nobody really knows how Pippi got her strength. Some say it is because she eats so many pancakes. Others say it is just her magical nature. But what we do know is this: Pippi can lift her horse with one arm, chase away bullies without fear, and even carry heavy policemen when they try to tell her what to do. She does not brag about it too much. For her, being strong is just part of life, like brushing her teeth or tying her shoes. But whenever someone tries to boss her around, she proves that she cannot be controlled. Pippi herself. Let us imagine Pippi. She has bright red hair that sticks out in two stiff braids. She wears long stockings that do not match. One is black, the other is striped. Her dress is too short and patched with different colors. On her big feet she wears shoes that are much too large. Some adults may think she looks messy, but to children she looks perfect, free, fun, and creative. Pippi does not care about fashion. She cares about comfort, laughter, and being herself. Tommy and Annika. Next door to Villa Culla live two children, Tommy and Annika. They are polite, well-behaved, and very ordinary. They wear neat clothes, go to school every day, and always listen to their mother. When they first meet Pippi, they do not know what to think. She is so unusual. But soon they realize she is also kind, generous, and full of adventure. With Pippi around, life is never boring. Tommy and Annika become her best friends, and together they explore the world in ways they never imagined. The first adventure, meeting Pippi. The very first time Tommy and Annika visit Pippi's house, they are amazed. Villa Culla looks like no other house. It is full of strange treasures, old furniture, and funny objects Pippi collected during her travels with her father, who was once a sea captain. Pippi shows them a cupboard full of cookies, a bag full of gold coins, and of course her pet monkey. She tells them unbelievable stories about faraway lands, cannibals, and pirates. Are the stories true? Nobody knows for sure, but Pippi tells them with such excitement that the children believe every word. That day, Tommy and Annika realize that Pippi is going to change their lives forever. Pippi makes pancakes. One of the funniest moments comes when Pippi decides to cook for her friends. She announces that she will make pancakes. But Pippi's way of cooking is not like anyone else's. She cracks eggs by throwing them high into the air. She stirs the batter with a broom handle. She flips pancakes so high they almost land on the ceiling. The kitchen turns into a giant mess, with flour on the floor, milk on the table, and butter on Pippi's nose. But in the end, the pancakes are delicious. Tommy and Annika eat until their bellies are full, laughing at Pippi's crazy methods. Pippi just shrugs and says, "Why make things ordinary when you can make them fun?" Trouble with the policeman. Because Pippi lives alone, Some adults worry about her. 2 policemen once come to Villa Culla to tell her she must go to school and live in a proper children's home. But Pippi has her own ideas. She welcomes the policemen kindly, offers them pancakes, and then shows them how she can lift each of them in the air like dolls. The policemen are so surprised they do not know what to do. When they try to grab her, she simply plays a game of tag, climbing on the roof, jumping through windows, and laughing the whole time. The policemen give up, exhausted. Pippi waves goodbye, perfectly happy to continue living her free life. School for one day. Even though she does not want to, Pippi once decides to try going to school, just to see what it is like. She joins Tommy and Annika in their classroom. At first, she tries to behave. But soon she grows restless. When the teacher asks math questions, Pippi answers with silly stories. When it is time to write letters, she writes upside down. When the children are supposed to sit quietly, she stands on her desk and sings. The teacher is patient, but the other children cannot stop laughing. Finally, Pippi thanks everyone and decides school is not for her. She learns best by traveling, exploring, and inventing games. And that is perfectly fine for Pippi. Pippi at the circus. One day, a traveling circus comes to town. Tommy and Annika beg Pippi to come with them. At first, she watches quietly. But when the circus master asks for volunteers, Pippi jumps right into the ring. She wrestles the strong man, lifts him high in the air, and tosses him onto the mat like a pillow. The audience roars with laughter and applause. Then she walks on the tightrope without fear, balancing like a professional. The circus master is shocked, but the children cheer. Pippi leaves the circus richer, because she always carries her bag of gold coins and pays herself for the performance. The gold coins. Speaking of gold coins, Pippi has many. Her father, the sea captain, left her with a suitcase full of them. She spends them generously, buying candy for all the children in town or toys for Tommy and Annika. She never worries about saving money. For Pippi, wealth is not about keeping gold, it is about sharing joy. When adults try to cheat her, she outsmarts them with clever tricks. Nobody can fool Pippi Longstocking. Pippi at night. Sometimes Tommy and Annika are sent to bed early, but Pippi's nights are filled with adventure. She sleeps with her feet on the pillow and her head under the blanket, just because she likes it that way. She tells Mr. Nielsen stories by candlelight, or she takes midnight walks under the stars. The world at night feels magical to Pippi. She is never afraid of the dark, because she knows her strength and imagination will protect her. The spirit of Pippi. What makes Pippi so special? It is not only her strength, it is her courage, her humor, her kindness, and her wild imagination. She does not follow ordinary rules, but she is never cruel. She always looks for ways to help her friends, even if her methods are unusual. Tommy and Annika love her because she makes them braver too. With Pippi, they learn that life is an adventure waiting around every corner. Pippi and the thieves. One quiet night, 2 sneaky thieves crept into Villa Culla. They had heard about Pippi's suitcase full of gold coins, and they thought it would be easy to steal from a little girl. But these thieves did not know Pippi at all. When they tiptoed inside, they found her wide awake, standing on her bed with a candle in her hand. She looked at them with her big curious eyes and asked, "Are you here to play tag?" The thieves were so surprised they did not know what to say. They pretended to be friendly, but Pippi knew better. She invited them to join her in a silly game, making them dance and jump like clowns. Every time they tried to reach the suitcase, she tossed them across the room with her amazing strength. At the end, she tied them up like bundles of laundry and sent them running out the door. Instead of being angry, she laughed and gave them each a gold coin. "Next time, just ask politely if you need something," she said. The thieves ran away. shaking their heads. They had never met anyone like Pippi before. Pippi goes shopping. Another day, Pippi decided it was time to buy supplies. She filled her pockets with gold coins and invited Tommy and Annika to come along. At the sweet shop, she bought candy for every child in town. At the toy shop, she bought dolls, trains, and even drums, not just for herself but to share with others. People stared as she carried giant bags without any effort. When she entered the clothing store, the shopkeeper tried to tell her what was fashionable. Pippi laughed and chose the wildest clothes she could find: big hats with feathers, mismatched socks, and coats 3 sizes too large. She walked proudly down the street, jingling with bracelets and laughing at the puzzled faces of the grown-ups. For Pippi, shopping was not about looking proper. It was about spreading joy and surprising everyone with her choices. Pippi at the fair. One summer, a fair came to town with rides, games, and contests. Of course, Pippi had to visit. At the strength contest, where grown men tried to hit a hammer and ring the bell, Pippi lifted the hammer with one hand and struck so hard that the bell flew into the sky. Everyone gasped. At the carousel, she brought her horse and insisted it join the ride. The children cheered as her horse trotted proudly among the wooden ponies. At the prize booth, Pippi tossed rings and won every prize, but instead of keeping them, she handed them out to the crowd. "It is more fun when everyone wins," she said, and the children agreed. Pippi's sense of fun. What made Pippi special was not just her strength, but her joy. She turned ordinary moments into games. If she swept the floor, she tied brushes to her feet and skated across the room. If she baked cookies, she threw flour in the air and made it snow indoors. If she walked down the street, she balanced on fences or did cartwheels instead of walking normally. Tommy and Annika sometimes worried about what grown-ups would say, but Pippi reminded them, why should we only do things the boring way when we can do them the fun way? Pippi versus the bullies. In the village, there were a few older boys who liked to tease younger children. They thought they were tough, but when they tried to scare Pippi, they discovered their mistake. One day, they trapped Tommy and Annika in the park. Just as they were about to cry, Pippi appeared. She picked up the bullies one by one and placed them gently in the branches of a tall tree. "Now you can look at the world from up high," she said with a smile. The boys begged to come down, and Pippi only lowered them after they promised never to bully anyone again. From that day forward, the bullies kept their distance, and the younger children felt safe. Mr. Nilsson's mischief. Of course, Pippi's little monkey, Mr. Nilsson, often caused mischief too. He loved stealing sugar cubes, hiding socks, and climbing onto the roof. Once, he even dressed up in Pippi's clothes and scared a group of visitors who thought he was a tiny wild man. Instead of scolding him, Pippi laughed and called him clever. "Life would be dull without a little trouble," she said. A day at the beach. On a hot summer day, Pippi, Tommy, and Annika went to the beach. Most children splashed in the shallow water, but Pippi swam far out into the waves, diving like a dolphin. She built sandcastles as tall as houses and decorated them with seashells and gold coins. When some children were afraid of the deep water, Pippi carried them on her back, showing them that swimming could be fun and safe. She even taught Tommy and Annika how to float by lying on their backs and pretending to be little boats. For Pippi, the sea was a playground, full of freedom and joy. Pippi throws a party. One afternoon, Pippi decided to host a party at Villa Villaculla. She sent out invitations written in bright colors, inviting all the children of the village. When the guests arrived, they found tables piled high with cakes, cookies, and lemonade. Instead of chairs, Pippi had hung swings from the ceiling. The children laughed as they swung back and forth while eating their treats. For entertainment, Pippi performed magic tricks, lifting the horse with one hand and juggling furniture. The party ended with a treasure hunt around the garden, where children found sweets hidden in flower pots and gold coins under rocks. Everyone agreed it was the best party they had ever attended. Pippi the Explorer. Sometimes Pippi told stories of her travels with her father, the sea captain. She spoke of tropical islands, dancing with cannibals, and chasing crocodiles. Were the stories true? Nobody knew, but Tommy and Annika listened with wide eyes. Pippi promised that one day, she would take them on a real adventure across the sea. Until then, every day with her was already an adventure. The heart of Pippi. What makes Pippi Longstocking unforgettable is not just her wild adventures. It is her heart. She is generous, giving away her gold without a second thought. She is kind, always protecting the weak. She is funny, turning problems into games. But above all, she is free. She shows children that it is possible to live differently, to imagine, to play, to be strong, and to stay true to yourself. Stories of the sea. Sometimes in the quiet evenings at Villa Villaculla, Pippi would sit on the porch with Tommy and Annika and tell them about her father, Captain Ephraim Longstocking. She explained, was a brave sailor who had once ruled over a tropical island. He was lost at sea, but Pippi believed with all her heart that he was alive, sailing the oceans and waiting for the day they would be reunited. She described how he taught her to climb ropes, steer ships, and sing sailor songs. She told them about faraway places where parrots talked, where coconuts fell like rain, and where treasure lay buried under the sand. For Tommy and Annika, these stories were magical. For Pippi, they were memories, bright and real. Pirates and treasure. One of Pippi's favorite games was pretending to fight pirates, but sometimes it felt a little too real. Once, while wandering near the harbor, Pippi met two rough sailors who thought they could trick her into giving them gold. They laughed at the idea of a little girl with money, but soon they were not laughing at all. Pippi tossed them into the water like sacks of flour and made them promise never to bother children again. She then bought ice cream for every child at the harbor, saying, "It is always better to spend treasure on joy than to let greedy men steal it." Pippi's kind surprises. Though she often played tricks, Pippi also loved to surprise people with kindness. When an old lady could not carry her groceries, Pippi lifted her and the basket together, delivering them right to her door. When a poor boy lost his toy, she gave him one of her own, saying, "I have more fun giving than keeping." When Tommy and Annika felt sad, she told stories so silly they laughed until they forgot their worries. Her gifts were not always ordinary. Sometimes they were seashells, sometimes cakes, sometimes wild adventures, but they always came from her heart. A glimpse of sadness. Though Pippi laughed often, sometimes a shadow crossed her face. On quiet nights, when the stars shone brightly, she whispered to Mr. Nielsen about her parents. Her mother had passed away when Pippi was little, and her father was far across the sea. Tommy and Annika noticed these moments. They realized that even the strongest girl in the world sometimes felt lonely. That made them love her even more. They promised to always be her friends, no matter what. Pippi smiled and said, "A girl who has friends is never truly alone." Pippi's Christmas. One winter, Pippi decided to give the children of the village the best Christmas ever. She decorated Villa Villaculla with lights, candles, and garlands made of cookies. She built a snowman taller than her house and dressed it in her own clothes. Then she filled baskets with sweets and small toys, delivering them secretly at night. The children woke on Christmas morning to find gifts on their doorsteps, never guessing they came from Pippi. Tommy and Annika knew, of course, and they hugged her tightly. Pippi only laughed and said, "Christmas is better when it comes with surprises." The return of Captain Longstocking. One of the greatest moments in Pippi's story came when her father returned. Captain Ephraim Longstocking sailed back into the harbor, his beard long and his heart full of love for his daughter. He told her that he was now a cannibal king on a distant island and that he wanted Pippi to join him as a princess. Pippi was thrilled, but when she looked at Tommy and Annika, she hesitated. Could she leave her friends behind? In the end, Pippi chose to stay at Villa Villaculla. She loved her father, but she loved her freedom and her friends even more. She told Captain Longstocking that she would visit him one day, but for now, her place was with Tommy, Annika, Mr. Nielsen, and her horse. Her father understood, and he sailed away with pride, knowing his daughter was strong enough to choose her own path. Lessons from Pippi. What can we learn from Pippi Longstocking? So many things, my little friends. 1. Strength is not just muscles. It is courage, kindness, and the ability to stand up for what is right. 2. Rules can be bent. Sometimes it is okay to do things differently, as long as it brings joy and does not hurt others. 3. Generosity makes life rich. Pippi gave more than she kept, and that made her truly wealthy. 4. Even strong people need friends. No one should live without love and laughter. 5. Imagination is powerful. With imagination, even ordinary days become adventures. The spirit of Pippi lives on. Even after her many adventures, Pippi remained the same wild, free girl with braids that stuck out, stockings that never matched, and shoes that were far too big. She never grew tired of turning the world upside down, of laughing when others frowned, of giving when others kept, and wherever she went, she reminded children that they too could be brave, kind, and playful. That is why, even today, long after Astrid Lindgren first wrote her story, children everywhere still love Pippi Longstocking. She is not just a character, she is a spirit, the spirit of freedom, fun, and friendship. A gentle goodbye. And so, my little friends, our long story of Pippi comes to an end. We have seen her lift horses, chase away thieves, share treasures, throw parties, and teach us how to live with laughter. We have also seen her softer side, her longing for her parents, and her love for her friends. Pippi is a reminder that childhood is full of magic, and that even as we grow, we should never forget how to play, imagine, and be brave. Goodbye with kind wishes, my little friends. Please like and subscribe to my channel.